Greetings, everyone. Today we are back with our series of live, and today we will be talking about branding. And we're just waiting a couple of minutes for our guest. Until then, we have with us none other than Time Brigadier Sashib Naseem ji.
No, he has
He is.
arrived. The guest has arrived. Yeah.
Oh wow, guest has arrived. Perfect timing, perfect entry.
So just yeah, okay.
Good evening and welcome, Mansur Hasib ji. It is a pleasure having you here with us. Dr. Mansur Hasib is a global award winning education leader, author, and speaker. He's also a cybersecurity expert who's very passionate about bringing out the greatness that exists within every human being. He's the host of weekly video podcast series, which is called Conversations with Dr. Cybersecurity, where he engages with people globally and discusses a wide range of issues. His one last famous book, Bring Inner Greatness Out, is acclaimed widely and is appreciated globally. And today we will also be looking at that book. We'll be talking about branding, personal branding. So thank you so much, sir, for being here, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you with us. We are
Uh,
unable to hear you, sir. Our apologies for the technical issues. Please bear with us
Is
for
that
a
any
couple
better?
of seconds.
Can you hear
yes,
me
yes.
now?
Now we can hear you.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can.
can hear you.
Okay. All right. So it looks like when we went into the show, the microphone changed for some reason, but it's good now.
Awesome, awesome. So, firstly, sir, as you are an expert in personal branding, what do you think are the two to three, needed ingredients of branding?
Sure. The most important thing, which a lot of people don't realize, is your name. So too many people are putting up their name inconsistently. For example, they might have a nickname or they might have a longer name, let's say Melissa, but they like to go by Mel. Well, are you Melissa or are you Mel? I mean, we really need to know that. So, because you will have branding dilution if you change your name all the time and display your name in a variety of ways. So, your name should be displayed one way. For example, if you think about a company doesn't go by multiple names, they go by a single name and they want that name to become a verb almost. So Google is a good example. You won't see Google talk itself as some other company also. So human beings are the same way. So that's the number one thing. Number two is, what is your mission in life? Do you have a mission? We need to know that because every brand, whether it's a person or an organization, must have a mission. All right. And then now, are you true to your mission? So, for example, you may be a cybersecurity expert or a leadership expert, but are you also commenting on politics, which may not be your brand or your area of expertise? So, it is important for people to stay true to their area of expertise. That way, once again, their brand doesn't get diluted. So, those are the two or three key things.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. You talked about a name and you talked about mission. How important is it to have one constant mission? And can we keep switching? Like I see a couple of people that for the first year they think, okay, we will focus upon, let's say, digital marketing. And by the second year, or even shorter than that, they realize that okay, something better or something more specific is needed. So, how often do you think can we switch between our missions, and how does that impact our branding?
Excellent question. We can actually have multiple missions, And that's like a company having different products or services in different areas. So the key is your expertise in this area, your passion in that area. So, for example, in my case, I do have two very diverse passions. One is promoting the education of cybersecurity throughout the world. But at the same time, I also promote personal branding. Now, the two can be combined, and in some cases I do, but in some cases I talk about them separately. But then another key thing that goes throughout both of my branding streams is the concept of leadership and ethical leadership. So even when I talk about cybersecurity, I'm focusing on the ethical leadership component. And then I'm also explaining how personal branding can help someone become a globally famous cybersecurity leader. All right. Now, when I go to marketing concepts or personal branding, then I can talk about personal branding without necessarily bringing in the cybersecurity elements. So it needs to cohesively work.
Uh, can I here interject and firstly welcome Dr. Hasib? Very, very happy to have you here. It was a wonderful association and wonderful talking to you. And also, thank you for accepting my invitation to come and share your knowledge and expertise uh, with our community of people here. Thank you so much. Now, Dr. Hasib, what I have, when you just said this, I have transitioned through some of these problems. When I came out from the army, I was totally a leadership and team building trainer. And from there, somewhere, uh, I came down to narrow it. And, that time also I was struggling with two things: corporate training and education, that is, schools and colleges. And I was told by many people that I should either be focused onto the corporate world or on the education world, not both. But I couldn't leave one for the other. I was truly in love with both of them. So I continued. And in a argument with somebody who said, I don't know how to promote you, or if I have to refer to you to somebody, because I used to have a resort. He said, do I say you're a resort owner? Do I say you are an adventure guy because I use adventure in my programs? Do I call you an experiential educator, or do I call you a corporate trainer? So I told him, I said, see, uh, I have you may be talking about a brand in a shop, but mine is a shopping mall. I have all the shops in it. So what's the problem? So he says, but then you need to have different names for them. And then I quickly thought of Godrej, and I don't know whether Godrej is known to you much because it's an Indian brand. But Godrej has from hair dye to locks to furniture to all types of products, and they have
Right.
the same one name. There's no two names there.
Right.
So somewhere this confusion does come up. So I would like your views on that.
This is a fascinating point that you mentioned. So that helps me talk about the uniqueness of any individual. So many marketing professionals or the traditional thinkers will try to box in somebody into some neat box. But we don't fit into neat box. There is only one person in the entire world that's you. So why not talk about that brand? There is nobody else like me. There is nobody else like anybody. So the concept should always be, let's promote that brand and figure out what that brand consists of. What is the passion of that brand? Where are they trying to make a difference rather than trying to put them into a box? See, society teaches us to be average. But you see, we are not defined by our jobs. As a matter of fact, we define the job in our own image. I've never been defined by any job. I've held multiple jobs in multiple sectors, multiple fields, but every time I went there, and I'm sure that is true for you, every time you went there, you redefine the job in your own image because no two human beings ever perform the same in any job. So, therefore, the idea that I should be like somebody else or I should conform to some average or some sector doesn't make any sense. I should do the things that I enjoy and I'm capable of and contributing. And I believe that's what you're doing. That is sort of the reason why we had such a fantastic conversation, because this is really our second conversation. But even the first one was just magical because you come from that same feeling and sense that you are unique. You don't want to be boxed, and you want to bring out the uniqueness in every other human being. That's exactly what I'm trying to teach also. I'm trying to teach everybody. I mean, that's what my books and my teachings and everybody is all about. Do not try to be like someone else. Bring out your uniqueness and be the greatest you can be. And that is what is the personal brand, value, passion. And we need to change the world. Once we change that, guess what will happen? Every human being will earn what is their rightful earnings. They will not earn what society is willing to give them, or almost like give them like a begging or something. No, you should be recognized for what you're worth, and your worth is unique. So that would be my
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is on the screen what I say, that we have something like a purpose, a passion, and the person you are. Now, if these three things combine, then the 3P formula tells us that this is my unique proposition. This is who I am. And Dr. Hasib, another thing I must tell you,
Mhm,
uh, when I went to Tony Robbins' seminar, and there I was told, select between one of them, either
mhm,
corporate or education. And
mhm.
I told you I couldn't do that because I couldn't sacrifice one for the other. So I
Right,
said it's something like falling in love with two girls, and I said marry both of them. I can't decide which one to marry. Then came a time when I had a mentor, and he told me that you must have a super niche. Now we are still struggling with a niche, and here came a super niche. Okay, so I had to go deep dive. And I said, okay, I will become a time investment strategist. And now I say I'm a time consciousness coach. Now, when I said this, he said, why? I said, see, I've written a book, and if you now tell me to write another book for another passion that you may create, I can't do that. So let
right.
me stick to something I've already done. So for
Mhm,
about 2 years, I've been saying I'm a time consciousness coach. But I'll tell you what the problem with that. The problem is now that how long can I continue with only one thing? So I met a girl who's my student, and she said, "Sir, you have 50 years of experience,
mhm,
and you have so much of knowledge. Why would you contribute only time management to people and deprive them for all the other things you do?" So
mhm,
then ultimately it is just about 2 months old story. And I also heard another friend of mine, and she is a brand stylist or brand strategist in India. Her
mhm.
name is Tanvi Bhatt. And she said, instead of narrowing down to a niche, let's open up to a category and say, this is my umbrella,
Mhm.
and I do everything here. So, like you said, leadership, teamwork, and under that, we do so many things. But I need not be expert in just one thing,
Mhm.
and I may not be so expert, but I'm quite expert in many things. So
Right.
that is exactly what I was trying to bring out. And thank you. You've really speaking validated my point. So now we opened something called the BSB Life Academy. So now I
Mhm,
say in that life, we are talking about everything but self development,
mhm,
self growth,
mhm.
becoming a better version of yourself. We are only talking of that sphere. In
Sure.
that, I'll talk about time, I'll talk about leadership, talk about teamwork, I'll talk about everything that you need to do. And that's why today you are here, because branding is also a part of self growth, self development, self identity.
Yes.
And thank you for being here. Yes, over to you, Rajvi. Now, please continue.
Thank you so much, sir. I read a quote behind Dr. Mansoor ji. You do not need to be perfect. You need to, I'm sorry, I missed that one word and then say your uniqueness. So could you just, okay, you need to be perfect
Yeah.
in your uniqueness. Yeah.
Right. The key is that a lot of people are trying to be perfect, and they're so scared of trying to present themselves to the world. They said, "Oh my God, I'm competing against all these senior experienced people, and I'm just a 20-year-old." But you see, you're 20-year-old. Every human being is unique. So perfect your uniqueness. That's what I say. Do not try to be perfect. Instead, perfect your uniqueness. In other words, discover. So, as Brigadier was talking about, which is a human being is not unidimensional. You have multiple dimensions. So, the question is, how many of these dimensions are you going to cultivate or develop to such a level that you can make meaningful contributions and potentially monetize that skill? So for example, could you monetize public speaking? Absolutely. Could you monetize, say, education? Absolutely. Could you monetize leadership? Could you monetize publishing, book writing? Could you monetize just voice acting for other authors? So, for example, recently, just last year, I started this brand new business of monetizing my voice acting and narration skills for other authors, because not everybody has that skill. Not everybody has perhaps the voice or the ability to do audio editing and all that stuff, right? So, you find what talents you have, and this is your uniqueness. You see, what I'm doing is perfecting my uniqueness.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I love this idea, and we are getting closer to, like I was saying, today's conversation is bringing us even closer to the way we think.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
let me also bring in here something. Uh, yeah, first I'm just putting this poster up there. Oh my God. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So I'm reminded of 2015 when I had gone to Singapore and attending Tony Robbins' seminar, in which there's a gentleman called Jerry Robert, who's a book coach, and he took a little session and asked us, "How many of you have wanted to write a book?" And a lot of people raised their hands, and I was one of them. So he said, "How long?" And some people said 2 years and 3 years. And I said, 15 years. And he said, "Then why have you been thinking of writing for 15 years? Why haven't you written?" Okay. So, lot of, everyone started coming out with their answers saying, "Oh, even if I write an essay, I make so many mistakes. How can I write a book?" And some people said, "I don't know what to write a book on." And somebody said something or the other. There are a lot of things coming up.
Right.
And then he said something very profound. And I just sort of grabbed that idea. And he said, "Problem with you all is you want to write a perfect book. Settle
Yeah.
down to writing your first imperfect book." So I went onto Facebook and I said, "I'm going to write my first imperfect book by December." And when that book came out, I put on the Facebook to say, "My first imperfect book is out."
Beautiful.
So, so chasing perfectionism, I used to be a perfectionist at one time till I realized that
Yeah.
it is no use. Don't chase perfection. And I love this idea. Rather than chasing perfection, perfect your uniqueness. That's very nice. Thank you
That's,
so
Yeah.
much.
yes.
I think this is one key element a lot of our viewers are going to take in, and even me, I'm going to take in this message with me that perfect your uniqueness.
You are unique. There's nobody else in the entire world, universe like you. How amazing is that? So why would you even try to be somebody else?
Yeah.
Discover yourself and bring that greatness out. And no point comparing yourself to, say, somebody that may have 40 years of experience in whatever field. You see, your experiences, your stories are unique by itself, by definition. So let's share that.
One other thing that I see on your screen and I see it floating down is bring inner greatness out.
Mhm.
So, what is the story behind this book? What motivated you or what pushed you to write this book? And what is this book all about?
It was really my own realization that we have lost sight of what true capitalism is. So I don't know that much about the compensation structure in India, but I do know what has been happening in the United States for the last 40 years. What has been happening is that we are losing capitalism. We're losing earnings according to production. So part of the reason the US became the greatest economy in the world is through this individual capitalism, which is I earn according to my contribution. So if I produce more money, more profits, I get to keep a fair share of that. But over the last 40 years, what has happened is that people are using their positions of power to take all the profits that everybody's producing and making it for themselves. And in the meantime, the true workers, the profit producers, are becoming subsistence workers almost. They're laid off every now and then. So you probably saw, starting in about the 1980s or so, the rise of the chief financial officer and then the culture of layoffs. So now, even during the pandemic, massive layoffs, millions and millions of people being laid off, and yet the companies are very profitable. How does that make sense? So during times of plenty, you're going to hire people, but when they really need the job, you're going to lay them off. That doesn't make any sense. So I noticed this particular problem. And that's when I said, how can I fix this problem? I cannot fix it at the macro level. I cannot change the world, but I can change individuals. So this whole concept of bring inner greatness out is for people to recognize that we are the true source of power. We are the people that produce value. If I don't produce value, company makes no profit. So the key is for us to recognize that, bring that out, and also help people understand the value of this product. Because see, part of the reason people are able to get away with paying us less is because we are not able to quantify how much we're worth. We're not able to argue when we go to salary negotiations. We're not able to argue that, hey, I'm going to produce $117 million a year. Now let's talk about that. Why are you offering me something that is similar to somebody who might be producing only $200,000 a year, right? I mean, two people can never produce the same. So let's talk about tying my compensation to my production. If I produce $117 million, my compensation better reflect that. This is not what's happening, but I feel that that is about to happen as people have recognized that working for substandard pay is not the way. And working for a single employer is also very risky. In this world now, do we really need to work for a single employer? I can work for multiple employers, multiple skills, as many skills as I can monetize. So that was my purpose. My purpose was to bring everything of myself. So this book actually includes my economics background, my political science background, my cybersecurity background, my leadership background, my personal branding background. In other words, this is me sharing everything that I have done to protect myself. So I got laid off 3 times in my life so far. And every time, the only reason I survived was because I had already managed the risks for my career. I was always prepared to be laid off. Unfortunately, not too many people are that way. They're not prepared to be laid off. I feel everybody should be prepared to be laid off. That way, they can control. Because, see, the other thing is that I don't want to work for unethical people. So if somebody, a company, or a person is incongruent with my personal brand, I'm not going to work for that person. Right? Because my brand will be tarnished. That is the reason I wrote the book.
Wow,
That is
wow.
very, very profound. That is very strong. I have seen that even in the army, where I have had a general who moved out, who sort of resigned because he was working under somebody whom he was not resonating with, not of ideas and all, but of values. So when your values don't meet, when your values are at daggers drawn, you need to leave. Yes, so true,
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
true. So
So for
I want to
any,
ask you a question here. Just 1 minute, Rajvi. I want to ask you one question here. How would your bring inner greatness out be related to unleash the power within?
Yes, because see, the thing is that, again, because our education system is messed up, because we're educating to an average, right? You go to any school, and if somebody takes too long to learn something, we almost tend to discard them. Oh, they're not, and we try to celebrate somebody who's we so-called gifted. Well, in my opinion, nobody is gifted. Nobody is like slow or whatever. The key is different people learn at a different pace or a different way, and we need to individualize this whole education. So to bring inner greatness out is the concept of, okay, who are you? What passions do you have? What talents can you develop? How many parts of your brain? So for example, anything we do actually develops a different part of the brain, right? So when I do, say, music, play the guitar or sing, that's a completely different part of the brain. When I learn a language, completely different part of the brain. So as many parts of the brain that I can develop, the more of my inner greatness I will be exposing. Public speaking, can I learn public speaking? Of course. Can I learn leadership? Of course. So why don't we do that also? If we cannot speak, doesn't matter how good we are, we will never be able to express our value. So public speaking is another very important thing that I urge everyone to do. Learn public speaking. So that is the whole concept.
Yeah, and another thing that comes to my mind is, when we are talking of all this, uh, I strongly believe, and I want your comments on that, that God never ever made a useless human being. Well, if we are not able to identify the strength of a human being, it is our failure to be able to discover that. And I found that some people in my army life,
Yes.
there were some people who discarded generally by people. And when you went deep into that, for example, there was a person who was not good in speaking English, and we had a commanding officer who's sort of condemned him. Useless chap,
Mhm.
useless chap. Just
Yeah.
because he's not very communicative, he's become useless.
Great.
But then we discovered that he plays very good hockey. So when we made him play hockey, he came to limelight. So it is
Suddenly.
something like telling a fish, "Oh, you are no good because you can't climb a tree."
Right.
So
Yes.
that is, yeah.
Let me share a
I think the
story.
whole ideology of again uniqueness and just accepting who you are and the fact that you're different from the other person because you have a different mission in your life. I think that whole again repeats itself. And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
one thing, as a reader, what are the top three takeaways you think that I should take from that book, and I should, use that in my life, and be it a teenager, be it an adult, be it a senior citizen, anyone reading it, what are the top three takeaways that we should take?
Okay. Number one is to focus on things that you control, because there are too many things that we don't control. So let's talk about a story that's in the book, which was one of my students that I actually coached, and I helped him understand. This student is blind, and one day he started talking to me and said, I have this disadvantage. I'm blind, and I want to understand how I can survive and how I can do in this world. How can I write? How can I share stories? So I told him, I said, look, first of all, you cannot do anything about that blindness. You're not responsible for it. Why don't you accept that? And instead of viewing it as a weakness, consider the possibility that it could also be a strength, because you are the only one who knows the world of a blind person. So could you be a leader in that blind world? Could you share how you overcame? Because right now you're in a graduate program. So it took a lot of achievement to get there. Why don't you share your story? You can actually describe the world of a blind man much better than anybody else can. I can't do that. So make that your strength. He suddenly said, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way. See, society is telling these people they're disadvantaged or they're disabled. Well, I don't consider them disadvantaged or disabled necessarily. I just say use that as your beginning of your uniqueness. See, I talked about the perfecting the uniqueness. Accept that. Like, if somebody is born a woman or a man, I cannot change that. If I'm born, say, in India or Bangladesh, I cannot change that. But what I can change is where I go, what I do, and how I monetize, how I behave. All these things I can change, right? So focus on that. The second thing is, do not look for the pot of gold, ride the rainbow. So this is a concept that I have shared because a lot of people are trying to achieve success and greatness. Well, amazingly enough, greatness and success is a journey, not a destination. You can grow as, I mean, you wouldn't believe how far you can grow. So the moment you stop growing, you stop becoming, I mean, you stop becoming a human being. So human beings are designed to grow and continuously explore. Never stop that. And the third thing is surround yourself with people. Like, because other people actually complete me, they enhance me, they support me. Without their constant friendship, relationships, in other words, don't exploit people, but build what are called symbiotic relationships. Well, I call that cross brand promotion. As a matter of fact, this particular episode is a great example of that because Brigadier Shushil, what is he doing? We are doing cross brand promotion right here in this show. He's invited to one of my shows, right? This is cross brand promotion, surrounding ourselves with positive people that are aligned with our mission who will help us spread the message and amplify the message. Those are the three key things in the book that I talk about that are important.
Thank you. I think these are three very important elements that each one of us need to understand in order to progress and in order to become a brand. Going back to the ideology of personal branding and the fact that that both of you come from the training industry. How important and crucial do you think is personal branding in this tech community or the trainer community?
By the way, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm
sir, we can.
So I just wanted to tell you this tech community: speakers, trainers, educators, coaches, and consultants. So we
Mhm.
call this, we given an acronym to that. So that means basically
Okay.
the knowledge sharing industry.
Right.
So what do you think? How does branding help them?
It is the most important element because, first of all, you have to market yourself, you have to get known. So you have to create content, and that content has to be constant. So, for example, engaging with your community 15 minutes every day is much better than engaging with your community once a month. It's like, think about relationships with even somebody you love. Even though my wife and I may be married for 40 years, if I don't say I love you one day, it'll probably be a miserable day in our life. Think of every relationship like that. You see, your relationships has to be nurtured. And so, same thing with trainers. You have to nurture all the relationships because that's what you're doing. You're becoming a mentor to lots and lots of people. So, if you teach somebody, guess what? That somebody will probably be your student for the rest of your life. I still have relationships with every one of my students that have ever gone through my hands. So, that is a very key reason. The other thing is, how valuable are you? You see, people need to be paying for your services, right? Well, why would they pay for your services? Because, see, services value has to be higher than price for our service. Now, what is value created? Value is an emotion, all right? Feeling. If I feel good about somebody, if I can relate positively with that somebody, the value of that person goes up. And now I'm willing to pay more for that person. So, for example, as a professor, or I was a real estate agent for 12 years, what did I used to say? I used to say one very simple thing: I will be the best professor you will ever experience in your life, past, present, future. Now, could that be your brand? Absolutely could. Because your student may actually never experience more than 4 or 5 teachers in their life. Could you be the best one they experience? Yes, they can, because of the feeling you give them, right? So that is why it is so important. It is important for you to be seen as a giving person, not a taking person, right? Trainers are givers. They're building up other people. And the other thing is that if your brand is about finding that uniqueness or perfecting the uniqueness in somebody else. So, for example, when I teach somebody in public speaking or any concept, I don't teach them how I would speak. I help them bring out that inner greatness they already have. I help them bring out their stories, the way they would share their experiences. You see? So that is the key for a trainer to be successful, to be able to brand yourself as that kind of a person who's going to take anybody. It doesn't matter who they are, at what age, at what field, but you will bring out that inner greatness they already were born with. Most people need a little bit of help, and that's what
Yes.
a trainer and a good coach can do.
In other words, you are saying the focus goes on you and not on me. I'm this and I'm that, and yeah.
Yes,
I think that's the key element when we understand that focus shift and we understand what where the where the light is needed. Once that is clear in the head, I think all the other things just fall in place. So,
100.
Shields, how's your experience been with branding? You've been in different industries, army industry, then education industry, and now the training industry. So, how's the branding been for you?
So I told you that I struggled through it, I evolved through it, and I came to this conclusion that yes, let me make a category. So I created this Life Academy, and that goes exactly. It resonates with what Steve has said, that we are not looking at a narrow option. I'm not only a time consciousness coach. I can help you with many things. So right now, in this very month, I'm doing a masterclass on goal setting, which is happening this Saturday. I'm doing another one on public speaking, and I'm saying TEDx is a different ball game. It is focused on short format public speaking. That is happening on 11th July. Another one is coming up on how to write a book. After writing 6 books, when a lot of people ask me, how did you write the book? Well, it's not only about writing a book. I think, Dr. Hasib, I'm sure you'll agree with me. Writing the book is the easier part. The more difficult part is marketing it, selling it, distributing it. So that is where we really, really get a little challenged. Yeah. So yes, that is what I went through, and that is the way I evolved my branding.
Awesome, awesome. Also now looking at the shift, it's no more offline, it's online. It's become, a mixture of going to seminars or taking seminars online. How different is this online branding, and why do you think this online branding is important? What are the key elements of this online branding?
Who are you asking that question?
Mansoor sir, sorry, this one's for you.
All right, no problem. Yes, actually, online, one of the key things we have to recognize is that online is now accessible to everybody, right? So technology has been democratized, literally free or low cost access. Because of that, our branding can now be global. Our sphere of influence can be global. We have truly started to become a global community with global collaborations. And if you think about it, if you are unique and only you can teach something, then that online branding and that online availability, online access can expand your geographic borders. For example, right now during the pandemic, all of a sudden, a lot of people realize that, hey, online can actually be very engaging. It doesn't have to be boring. And a lot of people take a physical class and they put it online. If the physical class was boring, guess what? Online will be deadly. So we can never do that. We have to rethink online. So Brigadier talked about the shortness, the TEDx format. Actually, in online, short videos are much more powerful than very long videos. Now, if somebody's going through a live experience, like that, somebody watching this, it's okay when they're watching it live. But the video format of this, if it's 1 hour long, it's very hard for people to follow it. Much better to have 5, 7 minutes, something like that, shorter and more frequent. So that is why, for example, I do my show Conversations with Dr. Cybersecurity. I talk 15 minutes with every person, and then we post it on YouTube. The idea isn't to put everything out there in one shot, because you can never do that. Even if you do a 1 hour show, you will never be able to replicate everything. So the key is, in online, we have to understand that online also has to be much more engaging, much more invigorating. So you can use for virtual backgrounds, you can use all kinds of things, you can use technology. It is also important to use proper technology and all that. The other thing is, in online, you need to also reach out to have connections with global influencers in your field. So I'll give you one very good example. My first, the cybersecurity leadership book, didn't have much penetration in Brazil, and I wanted to fix that problem. The way I fixed that problem is reaching out to a connection in Brazil, and I said, "Hey, can you help me promote my book in Brazil?" And just to seed the book, what I did was I gave it away for free for, I think, 1 week. The ebook version. Guess what? More than 1,000 copies got taken in Brazil. Guess what? That now planted a seed. So online gives you all kinds of these kinds of marketing possibilities that, say, in person would not.
Could I add one thing? And I want again your views on this. I think, for example, when we got into pandemic, I came up with something called high impact virtual engagement. So
Hmm.
we started engaging trainers with a program called Train the Online Trainer, and we are starting again our next batch on the 18th of this month. What we did was again telling those people that if offline is not there, let's come online. Now, what you just said is also quite in line with my emphasis on.
Mhm.
I said first change your mindset, because even when we people were on a Zoom, I said now you don't require a passport, you don't require a visa. Why are you still? Why is still your audience in India? Why don't you expand? Okay,
Exactly.
so I think that is a very very important thing, that you first uh, build a mindset which is a global mindset. Like
Yes.
you said, now there are no boundaries. The
No.
boundaries are only physical, but in online there are no boundaries. So why not take advantage of that?
Yes. So actually, that brings me to a very interesting point also. Even in 2013, when I moved from the corporate industry to education. So I'm brand new to education. 2013 is when I started in the education field. Before that, I was in corporate America for 30 years. Now, what I did was I did online, because just like you were thinking, I'm about scale. For me, teaching 20 people is okay, but I'd much rather be able to teach 20,000 people, because the ripple effect can be bigger. So that's sort of what I did. I built all these educational programs. So graduate education program that I had used to have 4,800 students all over the world. The other thing is, we have to understand that traditional education is completely changing. People are now becoming perpetual, perennial learners. So they're working and studying at the same time. And only way to do that effectively is online. However, you cannot take a boring lecture and put it online. That's what I'm saying. So you have to rethink. So I rethought that, made it very project oriented, and that was very powerful. The people that graduated from my programs, for example, they were already working somewhere. But then, through the redesigned educational programs, where they were actually doing smaller scale versions. So I was a chief information officer for 12 years, right? So the projects that they would do as a chief information officer or a chief information security officer, I built those smaller versions of those projects in the classroom. And now, instead of memorizing things or doing testing, they were actually doing things, smaller scale version. So when they graduated, guess what? Very quickly, they were winning awards. They were changing the world, but they were doing it at scale. So, for example, in just 8 years, more than 22,000 students have gone through my courses and programs. I mean, that is pretty amazing. How many professors in 8 years can say that, right? That is what online gives us. My goal is to continue this globally.
Yes. Right.
It's about how you use a platform, how you take out the best use of it. There might be someone who's used online to just scroll Instagram feeds and scroll Facebook and watch YouTube videos till midnight. But then there are others who've actually started up businesses and have got amazing incomes out of it, monetized it amazingly. So it's the way you use each platform well to it. And so one very key term that I think is needed over here is goals. Do you set your branding goals? Do you have some goals for branding?
Yes, you have to have goals, but don't be so sold on the goals, because goals can be refined. You will achieve better focus. You may start out, because a lot of branding and everything is also experimentation. Remember, you are probably doing things that has never been done before. So be prepared to pivot, change. If something is not working, like conversations with Dr. Cybersecurity, I had no idea it would become more than a year-long series. Initially, I did it to help people who were being laid off and maybe needed career advice. I wanted to make myself available to give free career advice to people who might need it, help them break through the noise, get job interviews and things like that, learn. But now it has become a rich, engaging forum, which has been continuing now, and I will continue it forever. I mean, as long as people are still coming and enjoying it. So I think that goals are very important because it gives you focus and a direction. But you can refine the goal. You can narrow down the goal. You can change, pivot. The method you apply the goal may be different also. So that is important.
I agree with you. Actually, it's evolving. You evolve as you go along. Because if you ask anyone who's doing something great,
Mhm.
was that his goal 20 years ago? And the answer is generally no.
Yes.
Generally no. Okay. So as you rightly said, that you land up doing things that you didn't even think of. So while you make your goals, and today I talk about short-term goals. I talk of a quarterly roll-on plan. I have a very different way of teaching goal management in this particular pandemic environment, where you can't look too far ahead. Uh, Whatever goals we had made in February 2020 had to be scrapped in March and rebuilt. So all those who could quickly reset their goals could do it. So you have to reset and review very, very often. So
Yes.
that's
And that's
very
the key
important.
point in this book about pivoting. I call it pivot points. Pivot points are powerful. You never want to keep going in the wrong direction for too long.
I've got this.
Yeah.
I've just made a note of it. I think pivot points are going to be very, very important. And I think that is probably my best takeaway from this conversation. Because if you don't do that, I think you have lost somewhere. Yeah.
Yes.
So before we are coming to a time when we must end. There is a question which has been there for a long time, and I'm putting it on the screen.
Mhm.
And this is from Ekmev, who says that as I am having a YouTube channel and I'm not getting very much good response even after it has been a year. So, what should I do to reach more people? And can I have fixed audience on my channel?
Well, my recommendation is look at your branding. Just having a YouTube channel is not sufficient. I have a YouTube channel also, but it is all my branding, relationship building activities that are driving traffic to the channel. Also, Is the channel only about you, or is the channel about other people also? Because remember, cross brand promotion is very important. So if the channel is solely about you and your brand itself is not strong enough to drive traffic, well, you will need to surround yourself with other people. So that is part of the reason that conversations with Dr. Cybersecurity, I feel, has been successful because of all the people that I've highlighted. You see, that channel isn't about me. My YouTube channel isn't about me. It is about passionate people who are trying to make a difference, people who are trying to break through the noise. And it is about all these people. So far, I think about 400 people have been featured there. Well, guess what those 400 people are doing? They're promoting my channel, they're promoting my content. So as you do this, this is the way to gain market share. And I would recommend read this book, Bring Inner Greatness Out, because that will give you marketing ideas. So we're all in marketing, whether we are a trainer or cybersecurity professional, a brigadier, a show host, it doesn't matter. We all have to do personal branding and marketing. So think of it that way. But marketing can never be just pure ads. It has to be content, valuable content that you get a glimpse of, a taste of, so that the people want more.
I think it has to be service. And
Yes.
and ladies and gentlemen, all those who are here, let me tell you, I got a soft copy of the book Bring Inner Greatness Out, and I've only gone through less than half of it, and it is so good. It's so good. I would recommend each one of you to immediately order a copy, because if you haven't understood the basics of branding. So personal branding is no longer an option. It is absolutely a must. It is a compulsion. And if you are not going into personal branding systematically with a little bit of clarity and thought, then you may be all over the place. So get focused, get this book, and really get the hang of personal branding. Thank you so much, Dr. Hasib. And yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. I'm sure our viewers had a lot of in to take away. Before we wind up this session, I would request you to give one last takeaway message for all our viewers and our listeners.
Well, we talked about it already, and you highlighted it, which is do not try to be perfect. Instead, perfect your uniqueness, and significance is not determined by the amount of time on stage, but by what you do with the time you get. So even if somebody gives you 1 minute of stage time, say something that is meaningful and valuable, even with that 1 minute. So in my case, I've never complained about how much time I get to speak. Many speakers you will say, oh, I cannot cover this subject in 1 hour or half an hour or 10 minutes. Wait a minute. If you're an expert in that field, you should be able to cover that subject even in 10 seconds. That is the key. So never complain about the time you get, but make it significant.
That was
Thank you so much, sir.
absolutely profound. I think that was hitting the nail on the head. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
so much, Sushil, and thank you so much, Mansoorji, for being here with us and for giving us your valuable time and giving us these small little tips in branding and on cybersecurity. It was an absolute pleasure having you here with us.
my pleasure and honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hasib. Very nice to have you. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you very much for that excellent exposure to this and insights into the branding field. I'm honored. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
My honor too. Thank you.